It's almost as if every big-name actor on the planet has a part to play in the MCU, doesn't it? And if they aren't currently attached to a Marvel character, they've either been announced to be one in a future movie, or worse, they play someone in the DC universe. As you can expect, there's been more than a couple of examples of actors being difficult to work with.
I'm not asking, I'm telling you. You wouldn't have done that otherwise.
I suppose that comes with the territory of throwing a bunch of famous celebrities with huge egos on the same set together. There's been several times where an actor has been a demanding diva or a complete bully. Here are 10 Marvel actors who were not exactly pleasant to work with. Back in 2008, Iron Man starring Robert Downey Jr. was the very first movie of what has turned into the most successful movie franchise of all time. 23 movies later, they've shattered pretty much every box office record, and Disney essentially owns the movie industry at this point. With that kind of credentials, it makes sense why Downey would have a bit of leverage around the Marvel turf. Not long after the release of the Avengers movie in 2012, he decided to use some of that power and influence by publicly making comments about unequal pay among the film's cast. Amazingly, he wasn't complaining that he was being underpaid. Instead, he was saying that his co-workers shouldn't be making a fraction of his salary. The comments made him a thorn in the side of Disney executives, but I'm sure his co-workers appreciated the support. He gets put in the bully category because of the way he took advantage of his position of power, but in this instance, it was done in a really cool way. This entry just goes to show that a bad attitude won't last. Edward Norton was originally cast to play Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk. Yes, that role is currently being portrayed by Mark Ruffalo, who's apparently a lot easier to deal with. Norton starred in the original The Incredible Hulk film, which came out right after Iron Man at the very start of the MCU. He did not make it to Hulk's next on-screen appearance, though. Norton is actually famously difficult to work with, as he's known to be a control freak who needs to dominate every aspect of the project. This Hulk movie wasn't the first time that rumors of Norton being a pain in the butt came up. It makes sense why they'd cut ties with him after the release of that first movie and opted to replace him. Plus, Ruffalo did a better job of embodying the quiet, subtle rage that makes Bruce Banner such a compelling character. As talented as Norton is as an actor, he just didn't portray the same type of mild-mannered sincerity. Speaking of MCU actors who had to be replaced, let's talk about Terrence Howard. You probably remember him as the original Colonel James Rhodes in the first Iron Man installment. That didn't work out exactly as they planned. You see, Terrence Howard was making more than Robert Downey Jr. in that first movie, despite being a secondary character. The studio saw their fault and corrected it, but Howard did not appreciate the contract restructurings and ended up butting heads with Robert Downey Jr. It's probably never a good idea to beef with the star of the movie and the movie studio. Howard would leave the franchise and be replaced by Don Cheadle, who's been simply wonderful in the role ever since. He even went as far as to blame Downey Jr. for his departure from the project. Howard has since continued a strange mental spiral, publicly stating that he has 432 faces, that he routinely plays a videotape that his ex-wife used to blackmail him, and that his attitude towards life was developed after watching his father stab a man with a nail file while in line to see a mall Santa. You know, like real, ordinary, normal, relatable kind of stuff. It probably doesn't come as a huge surprise to hear that Gwyneth Paltrow was difficult on set. After all, that's sort of the reputation that's followed her throughout her career. She has a long history of reportedly beefing with co-stars, and her time in the MCU was no different. According to numerous reports, Paltrow was unhappy with the presence of Scarlett Johansson, who made her first appearance as Black Widow in the second installment of Iron Man. Pepper Potts wasn't pleased, though. Alliteration aside, Paltrow was apparently extremely rude on set, shunning Johansson and never talking with anyone outside of scripted on-camera dialogue. Keep in mind, this was after the studio had agreed to some truly ridiculous demands for the set by Paltrow before agreeing to even be in the movie. It makes sense why she's doing Goop Lab now, a show where everyone works for her and praises her. Now that I think of it, that actually sounds like a pretty nice work environment. On the set of her MCU movies, though, she wasn't so comfortable or easy to be around. This is a fascinating entry because, by all accounts, Idris Elba is a really likable guy. It's rare to hear anyone have something negative to say about the guy, as he's generally beloved. That wasn't really the case on the set of Thor, though. Elba played the role of Heimdall in all 3 Thor movies, but he wasn't exactly thrilled about his part, and the enthusiasm, if there ever even was any, wore off pretty quickly. According to numerous reports, Elba was a terror on set, constantly complaining about his uncomfortable costume, the script, which he apparently was never fond of, and his feelings of disrespect on set. This all came to a head on the set of Thor: The Dark World, where he was apparently next level frustrating. All in all, Elba is considered to be a good guy, but I guess there's just something about the MCU that rubs him the wrong way. Or perhaps he thinks that the Heimdall character is a whiny jerk and he was just doing some really intense method acting to play the part? You know Andy Serkis from a number of different roles. You probably just don't realize it. He's played prominent roles in The Lord of the Rings and Planet of the Apes, only he's typically known as a leader in the field of motion capture performances. There's even talk of giving this type of performance its own category at the Academy Awards. And for nearly 20 years, Serkis has been the go-to guy in that realm. When he isn't playing animated characters, you can see him playing the role of Ulysses Klaue in Avengers: Age of Ultron and in Black Panther. According to numerous reports, his success as a mocap performer over the years has given him a bit of a swollen head, and he's apparently a terror to have on set. You can almost see it in interviews as well, tracking his progress over the years as he slowly loses that little thing called humility and takes more and more credit for the rise of motion capture technology in films. While he's probably best known for his role in the Matrix trilogy, Hugo Weaving also played a massive role in the MCU as Red Skull. He appeared in Captain America: The First Avenger, playing the antagonist to America's favorite plate-throwing hero. He did an awesome job too, only he apparently didn't enjoy playing the role as much as we all enjoyed watching it. Following the filming of the movie, Weaving was not shy about how tiring the role was and the amount of time he had to spend in the makeup chair. He had a slew of complaints, much to the surprise and the chagrin of the studio and his co-workers. Not surprisingly, someone else played the Red Skull character in future MCU appearances, as Weaving was uninterested in reprising the role. I guess a full red skeleton costume does sound a bit less comfortable than a black suit and some sunglasses. Anthony Hopkins is a straight-up legend in the film industry, which makes total sense that he'd portray one of the most legendary and well-respected characters in the MCU, Odin. You know, like the epic god from Asgard, Thor's dad. Yeah, that was the same dude who played Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. A trained actor who's been doing this for decades and has strong roots in theater, he was admittedly a little turned off by this whole Marvel thing. Much like Martin Scorsese, he just didn't see the merit of it. Granted, this guy was an understudy to Laurence Olivier at one point and has been a stellar professional for over 50 years. It makes sense that he'd be hesitant to jump on the superhero bandwagon, which often gets criticized for its lack of depth or artistic merit. In an interview, Hopkins even admitted that he completely forgot he appeared in a second Thor movie. That just goes to show how much that role meant to him. He may not have been head over heels about his part in the MCU, but I highly doubt he had any issue with those MCU paychecks. Ah yes, Stan Lee, the Marvel creator who was famous for his beloved cameos in all the MCU films. It was always so affirming and fun to see the creator of all these awesome characters partake in scenes right alongside them. His roles were never big ones, but he'd always have a funny part of a random line in every MCU installment. Other than that, he didn't really have any involvement in these movies, so he'd typically show up for a day or two and then leave before he could cause any problems. Then again, knowing his background as a strict comic book publisher, who often butted heads with anyone he worked with, you can imagine how he was on set. After all, this guy literally created all of this stuff. And here he is, walking around on a major movie set, seeing all of his thoughts and inventions come to life. Not to mention, make millions of dollars at the box office that he was not profiting from. But hey, at least he got those cameos. And this brings us to Hawkeye, everyone's favorite, least talented Avenger. So here's the thing with Renner. There's a common practice in Hollywood among celebrities and media outlets where actors will attend these things called gifting suites. A press outlet will give the actors some cool gift baskets and stuff to take home, typically around award show season, in exchange for exclusive interviews. Jeremy Renner, though, is apparently notorious for showing up, nabbing some free gifts, and then refusing to have his picture taken, get interviewed, or appear on camera whatsoever. Honestly, I'd probably do the same if I were him. But maybe he's just doing it out of insecurity? I mean, I'd act differently standing next to Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Chris Pratt, and every other shredded set of abs walking around an MCU set, yeah, suddenly the bow and arrow don't seem to measure up. Well, those are 10 actors who were bullies on set. It's not all their fault though. While making big budget movies can sound cool in theory, it can also be extremely irritating and tiresome. And regardless of their salty attitudes, the majority of the MCU movies turned out awesome. So they were doing something right. What do you guys think? Which Avenger would you most want to do a scene with? And which one would you least? Let us know in the comments section below and let us know why. Before you go, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe to Screen Rant for more great videos. Until next time, bye!